All right, Spider-Man 3. So Spider-Man 2 ended very ominous but happy. Peter got Mary Jane and she looked out the window and the music kind of got somber like, uh-oh, I have to live the life of being Spider-Man's woman. And that was a teaser for Spider-Man 3. Now, I was going to go into this review because right now we're on the road to No Way Home, so I'm going to be doing a retrospective on all of the old Spider-Man films before the MCU. So after this one, I'm going to be rewatching The Amazing Spider-Man and doing a video on that. But Spider-Man 3 first. So I was going into this review with the idea that I was going to be a bit different from everybody else because the last time I saw this movie was about 10 years ago and I did not hate it. There were things about it that I did hate, and I really didn't hate the movie. Now, after watching it, I'm a lot older. I've been through different tribulations and trials in life. I have become a bit smarter. I've watched more movies. There's a lot of problems with Spider-Man 3, more than I had originally realized. Now, there are good things about this film. There's things about the movie that I love. I really do. And one thing I will say is that, and we're going to get this out of the way right now, there was a lot of studio meddling with this movie as far as Sam Raimi went, because from what I understand, originally he wanted to do a movie about just the Sandman, and there's a rumor about like Kraven the Hunter, but the Sandman was going to be the focal point of this story, and they weren't going to do Venom. And when you watch the film, when I first saw it in theaters back in 2007, even back then I was annoyed because you got to understand something, y'all. The Black Costume Saga was like the big storyline when I was a kid. I was enamored with the Black Costume Saga that would eventually become Venom. So I was really happy and really wondering how they were going to do it on screen. And, you know, when I actually saw how Venom looked in that trailer, he just didn't look threatening at all. He just didn't look right. The Venom that we have now in the Tom Hardy movies is bigger and more threatening. This one looks like a little sleazeball. And Topher Grace as Eddie Brock is some of the worst casting ever. Topher Grace is nowhere close to being Eddie Brock. If you read the comics, Eddie Brock is a giant, jacked up dude. Tom Hardy's a pretty big guy, but he's not as big as Eddie Brock was. He pushes weight, big bodybuilder guy, huge dude. And Venom is big too. This Venom was like a little twerp. It was just bad. And for years, I told people, I said, okay, if they had just cut Eddie Brock and Venom's plot out of the film and just focused on Sandman and Harry Osborn's like feud with Spider-Man, the movie would have been better. But, and I still feel that way. But now after watching Spider-Man 3 again, dude, there's a lot of problems with this movie that I didn't pick up on the first time. But first I want to talk about the good stuff. So the special effects for 2007 are absolutely amazing. All the sequences with Spider-Man and Sandman, the way they would like have his body become sand and become like humanoid was absolutely amazing. And speaking of, you know, I mentioned Topher Grace was bad casting. Thomas Hayden Church, who I love, he's in some of my favorite movies like Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight, and he's also in Tombstone. He's playing the Sandman. And, you know, his storyline it's a callback to the first film because, you know, during the movie, as you may remember, we find out that he's actually the one that killed Ben Parker, but what actually happened was it was one big accident, which we don't find out till the very end. I thought that was kind of stupid. The way that the whole accident thing went down, why don't you tell him this earlier in the movie? You know, or earlier before everything got serious. Like that, to me, he could have just yelled, it was an accident. Like, you know, he just kept it to himself and it was just a complete problem. But with that being said, though, the Sandman stuff was the best stuff in the movie. The special effects were incredible. The fights with Spider-Man, although not on the same level as Doc Ock and Spider-Man from Spider-Man 2 and 2.1, were still fun. He was the best thing about the movie. But after watching it this time, dude, they completely assassinate the characters of Peter Parker, Mary Jane, and Harry Osborn. I didn't realize it the first time I saw it, or even the second time. I've seen this movie about 4 times in my whole life. This time watching it really, really pissed me off, and I'm going to tell you why, okay? First of all, I just want to say this. The first half of this movie is great. I actually really enjoy the first half. I think up until the halfway point, the movie's fine. I like the way things are building up. I like what they're doing with Peter Parker and Mary Jane and her trying to be a big like singer and opera star. All that stuff is fine. And I liked it. It was genuinely on its way to being fun. And then like the marital problems begin, or whatever you want to call it. And these characters in this movie, Peter Parker, Mary Jane, Harry Osborn, are so damn unlikable. Now I know that Peter Parker, when he gets the black costume, he's supposed to be unlikable because the symbiote makes him, more irritable, more angry, and more annoying. And Harry Osborn has chip on his shoulder because of the death of Norman Osborn. I get all that. And you know that he knows that, Peter is Spider-Man. He's got that in his back pocket. And there's a whole sequence with him and Spider-Man when they fight early in the film that's pretty decent. The new Goblin suit, not as cool as the Green Goblin suit, but it's fine. That's all fine. I had no problem with that. And like I mentioned before, the Sandman storyline with his daughter and everything, like that's good. Like all the Sandman stuff was great. But dude, you got Peter Parker. The scene, first of all, Gwen Stacy and Eddie Brock shouldn't have been in this movie at all. They should have just been about Sandman. Like that stuff was just extra comic book crap to make you say, "Hey, look, we know who that is." There's no point in having Gwen Stacy in this if you're going to have Mary Jane be his love interest. You know what I mean? Gwen Stacy is a character that was created, I mean, maybe not necessarily to die, but her main story in Spider-Man lore is her death, which would lead to Green Goblin's death way, way back in the 80s, until Spider-Gwen came around. But she's in this movie, and there's a scene where she and Spider-Man kiss, and Mary Jane sees it. Now, this dude's about to ask Mary Jane to marry him, and he's kissing other women. Mary Jane knows that Spider-Man is Peter Parker, and if you're a married man, bro, or if you want to be a married man, you should not be kissing other women, even if you're a superhero. If they had kind of done this a different way, where maybe like Gwen Stacy like sneaks the kiss in and Mary Jane walks in just in time to see that and blames Peter, that would have probably been better. But that's not how they did it. Peter was like, "Go ahead, give me a kiss." And then Mary Jane's like, "But that was our kiss. That was our kiss." Like, dude, you're dating this woman. You're about to ask her to marry you, and you're kissing another woman. What the fuck are you doing? This is before he even got the black costume. Then later on in the film, you have this, Harry goes through this weird amnesia where he forgets who he is for like half the film. And I thought that was a really dumb plot point. And then suddenly he remembers who he is because he has visions of his dad coming back to haunt him again, like what they did in Spider-Man 2. So that happens. And then she ends up kissing Harry. And it's like, what's going on here? And then she tells Peter, "I don't love you anymore. I'm with Harry." And Peter starts begging and pleading for her not to go. Dude, you think she's this perfect girl, but she's telling you she's not in love with you. And then Harry tells Peter, "Well, you didn't give her any attention," which is true. She literally stopped loving Peter because he couldn't give her any attention. But it's like, dude, he's also Spider-Man. He's got responsibilities to save people's lives. It's not all about you. If you are going to be dating a superhero, you have to know what it comes with. It's like dating somebody in the military. If you're dating somebody in the military and they get called off to war, they might be gone for 2 or 3, 4 years at a time. And you just have to deal with it, or you find someone else to date, which is what she did. But she knew going into this that he couldn't even give her, and it wasn't like he was gone for like months. He just kept showing up late and things like that. It made her seem so damn petty. And then she starts making out with Harry. Like, dude, if I was going to go with Mary Jane and she's making out with not just another man, but my best friend who just tried to kill me, a few scenes ago, what is wrong with these people? Like, I didn't realize how shitty the writing was in this movie until now. I know I'm late to the party. I think a lot of folks trash on like Topher Grace, and rightfully so. He sucks as Eddie Brock. And they trash on like the third act being kind of a waste of time, which it kind of is. The final battle in this movie is just kind of lame. The Venom Spider-Man fight was lame. But like, there's real problems here with the writing. Because when I'm watching the film, they're not likable characters. And then you have the whole emo scene with Peter Parker. And I'm sorry, but I just can't buy Tobey Maguire being this emo, like, wannabe tough guy. I just don't buy it. Like, he's not the right actor to play that. He's just not. Just keeping it real with y'all. And the scene where he like pushes Mary Jane down, like, what is going on here? Like, it's like this movie, it's like Spider-Man 3's intention was to break apart all of the progress they had made in Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man 2 made some real progress, even though Mary Jane was pretty annoying in that movie too. I feel like in this one, she was legitimately unlikable. Kissing your old best friend, it's one thing, because look, Peter's got the symbiote, Harry's got the amnesia, okay? They have, granted, not legitimate, but they have excuses. She had nothing controlling her. She had no brain problem. She literally kissed this man because Peter stopped giving her attention. What kind of a Jezebel is that? And then by the end of the movie, well, not even by the end, but near the end, he still wants to marry her. Like, dude, if I was with a girl and she makes out with my best friend, I'm not marrying that woman. I'm sorry, but I'm not. You gotta have a little bit of self-respect. And she breaks up with him and he's like crying about it, which, that happens. I'm not gonna dog him for that. When you go through a breakup, you cry, like, but dude, she's kissing up on your best friend, bro. Like, she is not the quality of woman that Mary Jane should be, dude. Honestly, Zendaya's Mary Jane's a better chick than her. Just keeping it real with y'all, yo. And that, again, I am so surprised because I never read reviews in this film. I just kind of knew that everybody hated it, and I thought a lot of it was because it wasn't as good as part two. It does not fill part two's shoes. But dude, this movie's just straight up bad. Like, the writing is bad. The effects and the action sequences. Spider-Man and Sandman in the truck, that's all beautiful stuff, yo. Tremendous cinematography. The music, it's not Danny Elfman, but it's, I forget the guy's name, but it's not Danny Elfman, but he still does a great job mimicking Danny Elfman. And the effects, for the symbiote, that's all fine. Emo Peter, the characters, dude, the middle part of this movie, for like a good 45-minute stretch, is just a melodramatic soap opera. It's no longer a superhero movie. And I know that superhero movies can be soap opera-esque, but it becomes like Days of Our Lives. She's kissing his best friend, then he finds out, then the other guy's me, and this and that. Oh, I'm with someone else. And I'm just like, what is going on here? Like, and then I kept begging for the movie to go back to Sandman so I could see more of his story, because I actually cared about his story, because believe it or not, even though he killed Uncle Ben on accident, even though, he was a criminal, he's like the most likable character in the movie. Him and Aunt May. That's wild. That is freaking wild, yo. I never realized how poorly written Spider-Man 3 was until I watched it again. And I said in my Spider-Man 2 review, I'm like, guys, I don't really hate it that much. I've never really hated this movie, even though when I saw it in theaters, I didn't like it that much. It was a letdown. This is more than a letdown. Like, the writing of what they did with Peter and Mary Jane. Maybe I missed a Spider-Man comic when I was younger. Maybe this did happen in the comics, but I just didn't like the way they took those characters. And then all of a sudden, Harry joins up with Peter, which I understand. I like that, but it was almost too fast. You know what I mean? It was almost too fast. And then his sacrifice at the end, I know some folks found it emotional, and it is a good end for that character. I wasn't feeling it because the writing was so bad. Because of what he had done earlier in the movie, we're going to get him by getting his heart. Come on, man. Like, you're trying to avenge your father's death, which I understand. I completely understand that. We can actually get behind that because it makes sense. That's motivation for a character, good or bad. But the fact that he went so far as to try to take his woman from him, like, that makes you a scumbag, bro. You've just erased all the sympathy I had for you. They assassinated all three characters. And I know, like I said, Peter, he's too much of a pussy in this movie, and then he's a phony tough guy. Like, that's why they kill his character. And Mary Jane's a freaking Jezebel. And she was always a Jezebel. I mean, in Spider-Man 2, Mary was going to marry that one dude, ran away and went with Peter. Like, this whole trilogy, dog, Mary Jane was not written correctly at all, dude. I never really realized it until now, guys. I really didn't, but Spider-Man 3 has a ton of problems, more than I was willing to even admit, or more than I even realized. I really took a look at this movie, and I was just, the whole middle part of it made me feel uncomfortable. The movie does not feel right. Spider-Man 1 and 2 have this fun, optimistic feel to it. Maybe because the cinematography was the color palette was lighter, cinematography was a lot more lighthearted. Here, I know it's a darker film, but it doesn't feel like it's even the same director. Like, it doesn't feel like it's Sam Raimi here. Like, it's somebody else. I don't know if there's some story behind it. Maybe he was depressed. Maybe the studio came in and butchered the movie. We obviously know about that. It just, Spider-Man 3, like, stands alone, separate from 1 and 2 because of that. Because of just the poor writing, the way it looks. And it's just, like I said, the Sandman's the best part of it. So, what do you think about Spider-Man 3? Let me know in the comments, subscribe. And next, we got The Amazing Spider-Man, which I always only seen that movie once. I look forward to seeing it again. Maybe I'll like it, maybe I'll hate it. We'll see. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to y'all next time.